All right, welcome to Events Heist, the podcast about post-COVID events and event managers. Today we'll be playing with Aleks and Victoria. Victoria, could you kick off by introducing yourself with your name, title, and company?
Yeah, thanks, Fab, and thanks for inviting me along today. I'm Victoria, and I'm the event manager at Hoosh Marketing.
Aleks, over to you.
Thanks, Fab. My name's Zids, and I'm the managing director of Quest Events.
Fantastic. So firstly, I'll just briefly explain how the game works. You'll both be starting at the helicopter, and the aim of the game is to get to the mint on the game board. If you land on an open manhole, you move back down the board, and ladders let you jump ahead. It's pretty straightforward. All right, let's begin. So Victoria, how many years have you been an events organizer?
I've been an events organizer for about 3.5 years now.
Awesome. And what about you, Aleks?
About 10 years.
Fantastic. All right, so Aleks, you've rolled a 5. And your first question will be, how many events have you run in your professional career?
Oh, good question. It would be north of 100, probably around the 200 mark thereabouts.
Oh, that's impressive. All right, Victoria, your go. You've rolled a 6. Okay, so your question is, let me ask you the same question. How many events have you run in your professional career?
I'm going to say not quite as many as 200, as I haven't been doing this as long. I mean, with the virtual events, it's going to be kind of definitely over 50.
Awesome. Fantastic. All right, Aleks, over to you. You've rolled a 6. Okay, so tell me about the first event you ever organized.
Yeah,
So
really
this could be professional, but we
Yeah.
prefer it the first event you ever organized as a kid, tea party,
okay.
birthday party, whatever event it was.
Awesome.
The first one you recall.
Cool. So, I mean, as a kid, I was not the one that was out there organizing parties at all. So pretty interesting that I've ended up in the events industry, because in my personal life, I'm a pretty terrible event organizer. I honestly think the first event that I actually went out and organized would have been my 21st birthday party. Party is a total overstatement. It was actually 30 of us at a restaurant, booked out the whole thing. It was a restaurant that was actually closed at the time. They were opening a week later. My birthday's in January. They were closed for New Year's. Managed to get onto the owners, talked them into opening a couple of days early, and got them to do a whole brand new menu for us. They're doing a new menu for the new year. So they tested out all their new food on us. And as a result, they just gave us a massive discount as well. So ended up, having a restaurant a dinner at a hatted restaurant for like half the price with the whole restaurant to ourselves. It was pretty awesome.
Awesome. All right, Victoria, you've rolled a 6. All right, your question, Victoria. What's your favorite post-event junk food? I know you have one. We all do. It's a safe place you can share it.
I mean, food, because usually it's some kind of alcohol.
Well, that was my
after an
follow-up
event,
question.
but-
What was your favorite post-event drink as well?
Food is going to be some kind of cake or something. I mean, I love sweet food. So, but then, usually after an event, we always have some kind of celebration. So you usually get the champagne out or the beers. In my job at Cambridge University, we were always given loads of free alcohol for different reasons. And it used to just live under my desk. So we'd always just get that out and have a celebration with the team.
Fantastic. My favorite is whiskey, just straight up. All right, over to you, Aleks. You rolled a 4. So I'm going to ask you the same question, Aleks, because this is one of my favorite. What is your post-event junk food or drink?
Yeah, so, I mean, after an event, I'm not a big junk food person, but I do love to have like a sort of nice dinner out planned. If we're doing events in Melbourne, my favorite restaurant in Australia is a restaurant called Tipo. It's just a little kind of pasta bar. So I'll always try and book that for the night after we finish an event down in Melbourne. And that's always followed up with a good few bottles of wine. And for events in Sydney, this is really bad, but I just go home and crash. It's just like normal meal. I'm in bed early, like seriously 8 o'clock at night. So there's not too much going on.
I feel you. All right, over to you, Victoria. Okay, Victoria, you've rolled a 3. All right, have you met any celebrities on the job, and what were they like?
Yeah, I mean, like I've done numerous talks with events with different speakers. So we've had David Attenborough at an event at Cambridge Uni. We've had Prince Andrew, several English politicians. Yeah, and they've all got their own entourages and everything. And especially with royalty, you have to do a whole lockdown of the building and lock down a certain elevator and a certain toilet for royalty. So that's always interesting when royalty comes.
Whoa, that's it. I can't bypass that one. Tell us about the special toilet for royalty. I'm pretty sure Aleks wants to hear. Aleks is nodding. What's that about? That's a new one.
They have to, yeah. So we had to have a lift lockdown for royalty. So like only he could use it, and then also a bathroom for only him to use, and nobody else was allowed to. So you had to have somebody guarding the lift and the toilet. So in case he wanted to go, he had his toilet ready.
That's an awesome one.
Can I ask a question here? Is that for like personal preference or security reasons?
But we only ever had, so Prince Andrew was well, I don't think he's anymore, but he was like a patron of the school. So we only ever had him, and he always needed a toilet locking down for him.
Fantastic. Okay, over to you, Aleks. You've rolled a 5. So what do you love or hate about events? And actually, this is probably a good point to explain lifelines. So if you don't have a good answer, feel free to lifeline at any point. The lifeline lets you defer to the other player. They get to move up to your spot and you get another turn. So that's how the lifeline works.
Cool. This is I think it's an easy one to answer. What do I love and hate about events? It's the same thing. It's the pressure and the time deadlines. I love working under pressure and having that deadline there. You know, if an event's, on the 10th of December, it's on the 10th of December. There's no moving it. So I really love working under that pressure. Sometimes I also hate that because you can't get everything into place that you might want to. Sometimes things aren't perfect, and you're often having to juggle, lots of different things with really, really not enough time very often. So it's a real love-hate relationship with that pressure.
Absolutely. And I've discovered that everything goes wrong technology-wise just before an event. Things that have never, ever gone wrong before. So I feel you. All right, Victoria, over to you. You rolled a 5. All right, Victoria, I'm going to ask you the same question from before. Tell me about your first event that you organized as a kid.
Well, I was probably the opposite of Aleks. I was a very organized little kid, and I always organized all of the kind of get-togethers with my friends, even like little tea parties with my teddy bears, and I'd drag my brother along and make him join in. I'd send out little invitation cards to my friends when I was a little kid. Yeah, I was destined to be in events.
Sounds like. All right, over to you, Aleks. You have rolled a 6. All right, Aleks, how did you get into events?
I think like a lot of people, or not like a lot, but definitely some people, I totally fell into the industry. I studied business at university, and after finishing that degree, I decided that I wasn't really convinced I wanted to work in finance, which was my major. Took some time off, and I was playing in the same football team as the guy that founded the business I'm working for now. He asked me to come and help out for 1 or 2 days a week, and I've been there for quite some time.
Awesome. All right, Victoria, over to you. Okay, Victoria, you've rolled a 4. Okay, Victoria, let's get serious. Describe the moment you knew that COVID was real and was going to turn our industry upside down.
I guess so. This was in my previous role. We were supposed to have a week-long, huge in-person event, and COVID came, and we were just like, it'll go away in a few months, it'll be fine. And then suddenly you see all of these events dropping like flies, and we're like, oh, maybe this is this is real. So that was the first sign, and then we had to go digital. And then I guess the second point was so I actually lost my job and several other members of my team due to COVID. And it kind of made you realize how much like COVID was hitting the events industry and how many people were out of work or furloughed. So yeah, it's been a tough year.
Absolutely. All right, Aleks, you've rolled a 3. So same question for you, Aleks. The moment that you knew COVID was going to do some really bad things to the events industry.
Yeah, so we had our largest or second largest event of the year, depending on how you measure it, scheduled for, I believe it was the 16th or the 17th of March. I was having a horror week. I'd actually just come out of surgery for my collarbone on the Tuesday.
Wow.
So I was meant to be at home having bed rest, and we were sort of dead set on the event going ahead if possible. And throughout the week, we sort of had 1 or 2 people say, hey, we can't make it. Can you do a virtual component? Or 1 or 2 speakers drop out, and it was sort of manageable. And then on the Thursday afternoon, I can't remember what, but there was something that happened, I think in Melbourne or somewhere in Australia, where there was a bit of a little outbreak, and suddenly it just hit the fan. So Thursday afternoon, 5:30, I left work, event was going ahead. Friday morning, 9:30, we had sort of an emergency meeting and had to cancel the event that was meant to be running on Monday, postpone the event that was running on Monday. And that's our biggest event of the year, effectively. So that moment certainly was the real, the shit has hit the fan moment for us.
Thanks for sharing. All right, Victoria, you've rolled a 4. So Victoria, what do you miss the most about live events? And also what do you not miss?
I miss the kind of, like the hustle and bustle and like being able to do all like the physical things of an event. Like I loved, like you'd have entertainment, you'd have like the venue would be all decorated, you'd have a venue and catering and then actual people. And whereas virtually you don't get any of that. So I do really miss that. I don't miss the fact that I used to walk about 20,000 steps during an event. I can now just sit in a chair. So that's quite nice, although not so good for my fitness. But yeah, you used to be exhausted at the end of an event because you'd just be running around crazy.
Awesome. All right, Aleks, you've rolled a 1. Okay, so Aleks, what industries have you done events for? And what was your favorite?
So we do events in a silly number of industries. So we've done events for the energy industries like electricity, oil and gas, mining and resources, health, finance, pretty much any B2B focused industry we've done. We haven't done anything in the B2C space, or I haven't done anything in the B2C space. And I've organized a handful of fun runs as well. Pretty much everything. My definite favorite industry is the energy industry. And the reason being, there's just so much happening right now. Like globally, there's this massive transition away from fossil fuels to renewable energy. And it just sounds like it's really simple, but there's a whole lot of complexity at the back end, which makes it really, really fascinating to be running events in.
Awesome. Okay, so now we're entering speed round. So we'll be doing double dice rolls. And let's start with you, Victoria. So you've rolled a 7. Oh, up the ladder. Nice. How did you find the switch to virtual during COVID?
Yeah, big shock, big difference. Because I'd never done virtual events before, and none of my team had done virtual events. It'd always been live events. So suddenly we had to kind of have a whole new skill set, had to completely learn how to do virtual events in a very short amount of time because we had events that we needed to put on. So yeah, it was definitely a stressful few months, frantically trying to find the right software to use and then learning it and putting on the events, and like also trying to train not only us to be trained and then become experts, to then train our speakers of how to use it as well. So a big learning curve.
Absolutely. All right, over you too, Aleks. You've rolled a 9. So I'm going to ask you the same question. How did you find the switch to virtual events during COVID, especially coming from an agency perspective?
Yeah, we found it incredibly challenging. I remember our very first virtual event, leading into the event, we really had to rethink every single process that we had. How do we communicate with attendees? How do we communicate with speakers, sponsors? How are we going to run things internally? Who needs to be doing what? So we ended up basically over-resourcing it so much. It was insane. We were having, multiple hour-long meetings every day leading up to it. And it was just unbearable. We got to the end of it and thought there's no way we can do virtual events for about 6 months. But within 2 to 3 weeks, we worked out a better system, a better way to run things, and it's been much smoother since.
Fantastic. All right, Victoria, you've rolled a 4. So Victoria, what was your best or worst event?
My best event probably would have been back at Cambridge University, and we put on an inaugural awards event. It was just so much fun to organize. Being inaugural, we didn't have any legacy behind us of how we needed to do this event. It was very much up to us. So we got to very much pick everything and just kind of design the whole part of the event, even designing the awards that were given out. And my favorite part was probably when we had to pick the menu, and we took a day down to London because that's where the event was, and just had a day trying all of the different, which is a very enjoyable day, just eating and drinking, all for a good cause.
Fantastic. Aleks, you've rolled a 5. All right. Do you have any funny or crazy event stories? You surely you have one. Out of the 200 that you've run, you must have lots.
Pretty much every story revolves around something going terribly wrong. I think this is probably my favorite story. We were running an event for the gas industry a couple of years ago. There was a guy by the name of Gary Gray, who was the minister at the time. Of course, as a minister, he rolls in 30 seconds before his presentation, jumps straight on stage and does a fantastic, seamless job. But as an organizer, that just sets the, sheer panic when they haven't arrived yet. He was actually running late, hadn't arrived at all. And I've given him a call on his mobile and just said, Gary, our events started, a minute ago. I hope you're on your way. And he's gone, Aleks, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm coming tomorrow. And honestly, my heart dropped. This was quite a big deal. He was the main keynote, and he could just hear like a groan emanating from the pits of my stomach. And then he's gone, I'm just joking. I pulled up in the car. I can see you on the phone. And
why would he do that? Does he know we're fragile? We're just humans. We can have heart attacks too.
You know what? He's one of the most down-to-earth people I ever met. And it was, I found it hilarious within about 30 seconds. But I don't think I ate for the next 6 to 8 hours because the pit of my stomach was still just quaking.
Oh, wow. That's rough. All right, Victoria, you rolled a 9. So Victoria, tell me about your best or worst attendee story.
I've had some nightmare attendees that they're just very demanding. Like I had one who would call me up every day demanding something else. I mean, they were just a regular guest. It was an alumni event. She'd email me most days demanding all these different things. She was actually the first person to turn up at this event. And she was the loveliest person I'd ever met, which was a big shock because she had been so annoying, pestering me constantly. And I was like, not looking forward to meeting her. And then, yeah, she was lovely. So I guess that was a pleasant surprise. So a worst attendee turned into a good attendee.
Awesome. All right, Aleks, you've rolled a 2. Okay, what's your favorite TV show at the moment?
So I've just finished watching Queen's Gambit.
Yeah, I finished that the other day.
Yeah, I quite liked that. I thought it was really, really good. I quite like chess, so it definitely resonated with me. And I actually haven't found a new show to watch. So Victoria, if you get the same question, I'm curious as to what I might be watching next.
Let's see if I get that question.
Well, Victoria's favorite show is that as well.
Yeah, although I've now finished that. So, but I have been binge watching The Crown, the latest series of that. I think I've got about 1 episode left to go. That's very good.
Awesome. All right, over to you, Victoria. You've rolled an 8. Okay, what do you think the future of events looks like?
I definitely think in 2021, we're going to have here in Australia still quite a lot of virtual events, but the move towards some more live events. Because I mean, as COVID restrictions are easing, I mean, now I think pretty much all of the borders are now open. I think Western Australia announced yesterday that they're going to open up. And then I think because of the ICC is now going to have large conferences in early 2021. So there's definitely a positive sign that we're going to be going back to live events, because I mean, as much as it's been interesting and I've enjoyed virtual, let's not lie, we all miss live events. So yeah, I think it's going to be a mix, but there's going to be a gradual shift to some more live events.
Awesome. Alex, you've rolled a 6. You need to get exact numbers to reach the mint, so you've bounced back here. Okay, tell me about your favorite speaker, dead or alive, if you were doing your own event.
This one's really easy for me. It's definitely Elon Musk. I find him absolutely fascinating. And I think the interesting thing that he brings to the table is the diversity of his range of interests. So he's obviously got Tesla, which he's particularly famous for. Now one of the biggest car companies in the world and fully electric, super cool. He's got a solar company that he's founded. He's innovating in space travel. So the things he's done there are incredible. And then he's also got Neuralink, where he's looking to basically create a brain machine interface to help us expand our consciousness and really keep humans ahead of AI. He's also got a screw loose. Let's not pretend he's normal for a second.
Oh,
So
I love the guy, but
controversy.
He's definitely got lots of screws loose.
Yeah.
In a good way. All right, over to you, Victoria. You rolled a 6. So what's your favorite venue of all time?
Oh, I don't know.
You can lifeline.
Let's lifeline.
All right, over to you, Alex.
So my favorite venue that I've been to, not a conference venue for obvious reasons, it's the Enmore Theatre. I just love going to gigs at the Enmore Theatre. Favorite venue of all time that I've never been to this one, but Pink Floyd played a show floating over the harbour about 40 years ago now. And that's the one concert I'd love to go to. It just looks so cool. So there's my answer.
Awesome. All right, Victoria. So Victoria, you've rolled a 1. So virtual events, you a fan or not a fan?
Yes and no. I mean, that's a terrible answer, but I mean, as I said earlier, I do miss in-person events, but it's nice to be able to have some sort of event rather than just no events. So in that way, I'm a fan of virtual, but I do miss that buzz of a live event.
Awesome. All right, over to you, Alex. You've rolled a 5. Fantastic. You reached the mint just on time. All right. So last question to wrap this all up. Do you think the events industry will recover? And how long do you think this will take to fully recover?
It's a really good question. I think it really depends on how you define recover. We had that question about the future events just before with Victoria. I don't think that events are going to be the same as they were previously. So if recover means going back to as things were, I don't think things will ever be the same. How long until we see sort of the same number of live events or the same scale and scope of live events as we had back in February? I actually think that is going to really come on quite quickly once restrictions ease. So talking about Australia specifically, the rate at which restrictions are easing at the moment, I really expect 2021 to have almost as many events as before, though with significant restrictions in place. So it might be less people, but the same number of events, or possibly slightly more events to accommodate that. So like the live music industry are doing 2 shows per night with everybody seated rather than 1 show per night as they might have before. What I'm seeing is there's in our business especially, is people are just desperate to get back to live events. and to meet face to face. So as soon as we're able to, I think there's going to be a flood. And I think across the board for hospitality and events, there'll be a real boom period for a good 6 to 12 months when this is all over, as people are desperate to see colleagues, friends, and catch up in that live environment. But there's also going to be a virtual element to nearly all of those events, because that's going to be a de-risking strategy for businesses. And it's also going to help, it's going to be much more inclusive and help bring more people into that experience.
Fantastic. So we're going to end it there. Thanks for playing, Victoria and Aleks. Thanks for being a guest on the first episode of Events Heist, the podcast about post-COVID events and event managers. All right. So before we end this segment, I'd like you both to nominate another event manager that you'd like to see on this show. So let's start with Victoria.
Well, I'm going to nominate my old manager at AMP, Helen McGlade, because she has some amazing stories. She's done events all over the world, and I think she'll have some interesting things to say.
Fantastic. And what about you, Aleks? Anyone that you'd like to see on this show?
Yeah, I'm going to nominate my friend and former colleague, John Traherne. He's a hilarious Welsh guy, so always worth a laugh. And he's worked in such a variety of events, so he'll be a nice one to pick his brain.
Fantastic. So thanks, guys. That's the end of show number 1. Much appreciated.